Hey everyone, this is Steve and Ross with Empire Academy, and this is your Empire Minute.
Today we're going to be talking about when do you recognize in the conversation, in maybe the email correspondence or whatever form of communication that you have, that the owner and our company, our process, our systems might actually not be the best fit for each other. And sometimes that's hard to tell on the front end, but we're going to speak today a little bit about how we can recognize some of those little signs that come about and kind of give us little hints that actually in actuality this might not be the best person to do business with. There's a saying in this business that I've always liked, and it's it ends how it begins. So if it begins rough, it might end well as well. Not so good as well. So we'll let Steve kind of give us some ideas of what those signs might look like.
Yeah, so one thing to remember is that a lot of times when somebody owns a rental property, you're assuming that they're an experienced investor and they know what they're doing.
Right.
But the reality is they may not know anything about owning a rental property or the business of the rental business. And so assuming that they know what they're doing or know what they're talking about is probably not the correct assumption. So that's the first thing I'll say. Second thing is you want to remember that they are coming to us because they feel we are the experts. And at some point we have to take that position in the front as the expert to let them know this is how we do things at Empire. And these are the ways that we handle certain things. So as an example, you may get an owner that maybe does not like things in the management agreement. And understandably so, the agreement sometimes can be intimidating. It can be things misconstrued, which is why we have the integrated management agreement, and also why we always want them to review the agreement prior to signing it so that they understand and feel comfortable. Now, the misinterpretation could be how they interpret that agreement. And that's
Yes.
where an owner may come in and say, well, I don't want that clause in there. Not really fully understanding what that clause is. They may just see it in there and think it's something else, maybe from a prior situation. That's where you want to come in with having knowledge of the management agreement and be able to explain that to them. So if you have an owner who basically goes through our management agreement, which we've had before, and they strike lines through everything and say they want to change this, remove that, that is a red flag, right? That's a sign that maybe there could be a challenge with this person down the road. The other thing is if they want to change that, what else are they going to want to change down the road? And also, are you setting operations up for failure? Because
Correct.
What we offer and promise on the front end, a year, 2 years later, when the renewal comes and we said that we would call him, which maybe that's not a policy that we do, but we told this person we would call him, the property manager is not going to remember that or know that because there's nowhere to put that information and it's not in their procedures. So what happens is it gets missed. Yeah. And then it becomes a ticking time bomb down the road with that owner or an issue because we voided the contract, because in the contract it says that we will do that. So when owners are asking for things that are not in our norm, that's when you want to go to your supervisor, to Ross, and ask him, is this something we can do or not do? When you start seeing more and more of these requests that are not realistic, those are red flags to say, okay, you know what? Maybe this is someone we should pass on. And so again, these are things you want to think about. If they say that they want to be involved in the leasing process, they want to pick the tenant. Now, legally, we cannot have them involved in that process, and with our company policy, we do not have them. Now, just because they say that doesn't mean that they are going to be a problem owner, because they may not understand that. They've never gone through a lease. So they just may not, it may just be ignorance on their part of not being ever renting a property, and they just think that they should be involved. Now, if you go through and explain all that to them, and they still insist on being involved and say, the only way I'm giving you this property is if I select the tenant, that's a red flag. So again, you just, you want to have your kind of head on a swivel and think about these things. And if all of a sudden you start seeing several of these red flags popping up, that may be when you actually come to Ross and say, you know what, I need your thoughts on this. Now, obviously in sales, our goal is to close the deal and to get the client, but not at the risk of damaging the company, damaging operations, and damaging all those things. So you really have to be that tip of the spear. Would you agree of doing that?
Absolutely. I mean, this is every instance that he gave is exactly what comes up, and for anyone who's been doing this a while, they've probably encountered clients that have made these specific requests. You're probably nodding your head going, yeah, I remember that. I remember that client. You put a name, a face to the scenario, the situation, right? And what happens is if you fast forward that timeline, is it ends up bad, right? And that's the problem, is we want to, it's not necessarily it's a problem, it's an opportunity for us to, one, either set the expectation on the front end and say, can we be in agreement with that? Or two, it's an opportunity for us to say, this is going to cost us more time than being able to go out and close another deal where an owner has more realistic expectations, or maybe it's a more suitable system and process, and it's in alignment with what they want and need as well. So, I think this has been really good to kind of cover some of those things. Obviously, there's a million red flags, but the main thing is when you start to get those questions, when you start to not realize if this is going to be a good fit, don't hesitate to come ask your supervisor and double check to make sure this is indeed something that we can do. So we hope this has been helpful. Thanks for watching. I'm Ross. This is Steve. Take care.
Bye-bye.